For this video, I'm going to cover topic 13, photosynthesis, which is the chapter 2 of A2. And I'm going to focus on 13.1c, where I will be describing the role of chloroplast pigments and show you how they actually arrange within the thylakoid. So what is your understanding about the role of chloroplast pigments, or what are the examples of pigments that you are aware of? So first, introduction. Pigments is actually any substance that can actually absorb light and convert them into chemical energy. So what makes a chlorophyll appear as green? It's because the color is coming from the wavelength that they actually reflect. So it means that chlorophyll that is found in your plants, if they appear green, is because they do not absorb green. And instead, they absorb other wavelengths such as blue and red. And we have two main categories of pigments here, whereby we have the first group that is known as chlorophyll. And the most important chlorophyll is actually chlorophyll A, as it is known as the primary pigment. And the next group will be the accessory pigments, which includes anything other than chlorophyll A. So at least memorize one or two examples such as chlorophyll B, xanthophylls, or carotenoids. As you can see, this is a diagram of a chlorophyll. They actually resembles a phospholipid, as they actually do have a long hydrocarbon chain that is lipid soluble and hydrophobic, so they can be located within the hydrocarbon chain of the phospholipid, and they have a hydrophilic porphyrin ring where it's actually facing the liquid environment and therefore can interact with the phospholipid phosphate head. So now we're going to go into the arrangement of the pigments within the thylakoid. So chlorophyll pigments are shown as this funnel shape structure, and this whole thing is known as a photosystem. So photosystem is actually embedded within the thylakoid membrane, which is made up of phospholipid bilayer. So how would you describe the photosystem? So photosystem is actually a collection of pigments made up of accessory pigments, which is this particular group, and all the accessory pigments will form an antenna complex, and these pigments are actually surrounding the reaction center that is made up of chlorophyll A only. So it means that every single plant will definitely have a chlorophyll A that is surrounded by accessory pigments, but the combination of accessory pigments will be different for different plants. So this is like from the front view. From the top view, you will see that chlorophyll A is located at the center, surrounded by many accessory pigments such as chlorophyll B, xanthophyll, and carotenoids. So when we say the photosystem or the pigments absorbs the light, it's the light energy that's being transferred along the accessory pigments before it reaches the chlorophyll A. So take note, it's the light energy that's being absorbed and transferred along the accessory pigment before reaching the chlorophyll A. And when it reaches the chlorophyll A, the electrons in the chlorophyll A will be excited to a higher energy level. So now we are going to relate the learning outcome to an essay question, where the question requires students to describe the structure of a photosystem. So, photosystem, what is it actually? Number one, we will say that the photosynthetic pigments are arranged in a light harvesting cluster or light harvesting system, and this is known as photosystem. So photosystem, I put PS in short, is made up of chlorophyll A, which is also known as the primary pigment, in the reaction center, surrounded by accessory pigments known as chlorophyll B and carotenoids. We just need to quote some examples. Then what else can we talk about? As you know, that we have two types of photosystems. One is known as photosystem 1 and the other one is photosystem 2. So the arrangement of the pigments are actually the same. The only difference is photosystem 1 has an absorption peak at 700 nanometer, whereas photosystem 2 has an absorption peak at 680 nanometer. So it's just the absorption peak that makes them different. Other than that, everything else is the same. And the last point here to conclude, we are relating a bit about the role. So when photosystem absorbs light, the light energy is transferred along the accessory pigments before being passed on to chlorophyll A. And when the chlorophyll A electrons absorbs the energy will be excited to a higher energy level, and this will be the second part of the topic where it's related to the process of light-dependent reaction. Let's look at some relevant past year question. This question is from October-November 2015, variant 43, question 7. So the question is asking, why most plants appear green? First point, we will say that it contains chlorophyll. And how is the chlorophyll appear green in color? So we will talk about because chlorophyll do not absorb, or you can say that it actually reflects green light. If you can remember the wavelength, you can quote, or if there's diagram given, which is between 500 to 600 nanometer in wavelength. Another relevant question will be, outline the role played by accessory pigments in light-dependent stage. So we know that the accessory pigments are surrounding the primary pigment. So what is the point of allowing the accessory pigments to absorb the light or the energy before chlorophyll A? So number one is actually to allow the accessory pigments to absorb wavelength that are not absorbed by primary pigment or the chlorophyll A. As we know that Chlorophyll A has absorption peak around 430 nanometer and around 600 nanometer or 700. So everything other than that will most likely be absorbed by accessory pigments. And the accessory pigments, they will pass the energy to the primary pigment. This is to allow the chlorophyll A in the reaction center to absorb enough energy to be excited to a higher energy level for light-dependent reaction. You might not come across many questions related to the role of the pigments or the chlorophyll, but it's very crucial for understanding before you actually move on to light-dependent reaction, where you need to talk about how the light energy and the pigments will actually result in the formation of ATP and NADPH. So do join my group of private tuition if you're interested to find out how. Thank you.
That's all for today's video. If you're interested in more genuine sharing by other geniuses, please subscribe to our channel and don't forget to turn on the notification bell, ding dong. Also, if you're struggling with one or two past year questions and the mark scheme just doesn't seem to help, Genie has got you covered. Feel free to let us know what question it is by filling in the Google form linked in the description below. GenieUs Hub will get genius teachers to fulfill your request for the solution. Genie will see you next time. Bye-bye.